What if I told you that almost everything you hear about economics is wrong? That governments, politicians, and even well-meaning activists keep making the same mistakes over and over again without realizing the long-term damage? That what sounds like common sense is often the exact opposite of what actually works? That policies designed to help often end up hurting the very people they're supposed to protect? Let me ask you this. Have you ever wondered why governments spend billions on public works projects, yet roads still have potholes? Or why every election cycle, politicians promise more jobs, more stability, yet inflation keeps eating away at your paycheck? Or why, after every financial crisis, the people responsible seem to get richer, while the average worker struggles even more? The truth is, economics isn't some complex mystery that only PhDs can understand. It's not a game only played by Wall Street elites. It's happening all around us, every time you buy a cup of coffee, every time you fill up your gas tank, every time your paycheck gets eaten up by taxes and inflation. But what if I told you that understanding economics was as simple as learning one lesson? A lesson that, once you grasp it, will change the way you see the world? A lesson that reveals why some countries thrive while others stay poor, why some policies make economies boom while others create recessions. Today we're diving into Economics in One Lesson by Henry Hazlitt, a book that exposes these myths and breaks down economics into one simple truth that could change how you see the world. And let me warn you, once you learn this lesson, you start spotting bad economic ideas everywhere. Part 1, the lesson, the one rule that changes everything. Imagine this. It's a peaceful afternoon. The smell of fresh bread drifts out of a small bakery, owned by a hardworking man who's been up since 4 a.m., kneading dough, rolling pastries, and making sure his customers get the best croissants in town. Then, crash. A rock flies through his storefront window. Shards of glass scatter across the floor, landing on loaves of bread and trays of cookies. The baker rushes outside, furious. But the culprit, a young kid, is already long gone, vanishing into the crowd. A group of onlookers gathers around, shaking their heads. "That's awful," one of them mutters. But then, someone else, maybe a man in a suit, maybe a local politician, shrugs and says, "Well, at least this will create jobs. The glassmaker will get paid to replace the window. He'll take that money and spend it on dinner at a restaurant. The restaurant owner will use that money to pay his employees, and so on." This destruction is actually good for the economy. Sounds logical, right? I mean, more money is moving around, more people are getting paid. It seems like a win-win. We're wrong. Hazlitt's golden rule of economics. Good economics is about looking at the long-term effects, not just the immediate impact. And this is where the biggest economic mistakes happen, because people only see what's in front of them. They see the glassmaker getting paid. They see the movement of money, but they don't see what's missing. Let's rewind for a second. If the baker's window had never been broken, what would he have done with that money? Maybe he would have bought a new oven, allowing him to bake more bread and hire another employee. Maybe he was planning to upgrade his shop, attract more customers, and grow his business. Now, he's just replacing something he already had. The baker isn't any richer. The town isn't any better off. The glassmaker may have gained a job, but someone else, maybe the oven maker or the potential new employee, lost an opportunity. The lesson? Destruction doesn't create wealth. And yet, this same broken window fallacy is used to justify massive government spending all the time. Ever heard someone say, "War helps the economy because it creates jobs"? Or, "We need to spend billions on stimulus projects to boost demand"? It's the same mistake. Yes, money gets spent. But the real question is, at what cost? Because every dollar spent fixing distraction is a dollar that could have been spent on growth, innovation, and real progress. That's why understanding this one simple idea, seeing not just what is seen, but also what is unseen, is the key to understanding economics. And once you see it, you'll start spotting the broken window fallacy everywhere. Part 2, the myths we keep falling for. Politicians, we need to invest in our people. We need to fight against automation and foreign competition. We need big government projects to create jobs and make our economy strong again. It sounds great, it feels empowering. And honestly, it's the kind of speech that wins elections. But there's just one problem. It's all based on economic myths. Henry Hazlitt goes all in on the myths that people believe because they focus on short-term benefits while completely ignoring the hidden long-term costs. And when you start to see through these illusions, you'll never look at economic policies the same way again. Let's break down some of the biggest myths that keep getting repeated, year after year, crisis after crisis. Myth 1: public works create jobs. We're going to build new roads, new bridges, and create thousands of jobs. Sounds great, right? Workers get hired, paychecks go out, money circulates. The economy grows. But where does that money come from? It's not magic. The government doesn't produce wealth, it takes wealth. Every dollar spent on a new bridge or government project is a dollar tax from businesses and workers. Or worse, it's borrowed, pushing the burden onto future generations. Imagine you take money out of your left pocket and put it into your right. Do you feel richer? Nope. Now imagine that before you move the money, a middleman takes a processing fee. That's government spending. Tax money being taken, shuffled around, and then handed back, minus the transaction fees of bureaucracy, inefficiency, and waste. That same money, if left in the hands of businesses and consumers, could have created more jobs in industries people actually demand, not in government-planned projects that might not even be necessary. Myth number 2: robots are taking our jobs. That fear is nothing new. In the 1800s, people feared steam engines would destroy jobs. Farmers once feared tractors would replace field workers. And yet, humanity didn't collapse. It thrived. The reality? Machines don't destroy jobs. They shift jobs. They create better jobs. Look around you. Because of automation, we have computers, smartphones, and global supply chains that bring affordable products to millions. Automation makes products cheaper. It makes businesses more efficient. And it allows people to focus on more valuable, creative, and higher-paying work. If automation truly killed jobs, we would all still be living like medieval peasants, grinding wheat by hand instead of enjoying modern comforts. The lesson? Every wave of new technology has always created more jobs, not fewer. The key is adapting, not resisting progress. The future isn't about job loss, it's about job evolution. Myth 3: tariffs protect jobs. It sounds patriotic, it feels like a rallying cry to protect workers. We need to stop cheap foreign goods from taking over our markets. Tariffs will save American jobs, but here's what they don't tell you. Tariffs don't just make foreign goods more expensive. They make everything more expensive. If you slap tariffs on imported steel, it doesn't just hurt foreign companies, it hurts American car manufacturers who rely on steel to build cars. And guess what? When we slap tariffs on their goods, other countries retaliate, putting tariffs on our exports. Let's say the US slaps tariffs on Chinese steel. China, in response, raises tariffs on American soybeans. Suddenly, US farmers can't sell their crops overseas. They have to drop prices just to compete, but by then, the damage is done. Many go bankrupt. And this domino effect keeps going. Industries that never asked for protection in the first place end up paying the price for government intervention. So, while tariffs were meant to save one group of workers, they hurt everyone else, including consumers, businesses, and workers in other industries who never saw it coming. At the end of the day, tariffs are just another version of the broken window fallacy. Yes, you protect one group on the surface, but you ignore the hidden costs. Higher prices, fewer jobs, weaker businesses, less economic growth. The truth? Tariffs don't save jobs. They protect a few industries while hurting everyone else. If protectionism actually worked, North Korea would be the richest country in the world. But it isn't. Instead, the wealthiest countries are the ones that embrace trade, innovation, and competition. But let's break this down even further. Imagine you run a small business, a furniture company. You take pride in crafting beautiful, high-quality tables and chairs. But to keep your prices affordable for customers, you rely on importing cheap, durable wood from overseas. Then one day, the government slaps a heavy tariff on imported wood. Suddenly, the cost of your materials skyrockets. What do? Do you absorb the cost and take a massive hit to your profits? Do you raise your prices, knowing that customers might turn to cheaper alternatives? Do you lay off workers just to stay afloat? None of those options sound great, do they? Many of the jobs that tariffs are supposed to save never even come back. Because in a global economy, businesses and consumers always find workarounds, whether that means shifting production elsewhere or simply refusing to pay higher prices. This is why, throughout history, tariffs have never been a long-term solution for economic growth. They might sound good in political speeches, but in reality, they create more losers than winners. And the ones who pay the price, it's us, the consumers, the small businesses, the workers trying to make an honest living. So the next time you hear someone say, tariffs will save jobs, ask yourself, at what cost? Part 3, the biggest lie of them all. Let's talk about a sneaky little trick that governments love to use. One that quietly drains your wallet while they pretend to be your hero. Inflation. Ever wonder why everything, gas, groceries, rent, keeps getting more expensive? You hear the usual excuses. It's just supply chain issues. It's those greedy corporations. It's just the natural course of the economy. But what if I told you that's not the real reason? The government prints more and more money, and every time they do, your dollars become worth less. And here's the crazy part. They do this on purpose. We need to stimulate the economy, they say. We need to keep people spending, they insist. A little inflation is a good thing, they claim. But let's break this down. The great inflation illusion. Imagine you wake up tomorrow and everyone in the country gets double the money they have right now. Sounds amazing, right? But what happens next? Prices skyrocket because more money is chasing the same number of goods. Businesses raise prices to keep up. Your paycheck buys less than it did before. Suddenly, that extra money in your pocket doesn't feel so great. This is exactly what happens when governments flood the economy with newly printed money. They make it seem like there's more wealth, when in reality, they're just diluting the value of every dollar. It's like watering down a drink. The more you add, the weaker it gets. And who suffers the most? Hardworking people who save money. People living on fixed incomes, like retirees. Workers whose wages don't rise as fast as prices. When the government prints money like there's no tomorrow, it feels great at first. Stock markets soar, businesses expand, people spend like crazy. But what happens next? The crash. Wages can't keep up with rising costs. People cut back on spending. Businesses start laying off workers because they can't afford higher wages. The economy slams into a recession, or worse, a depression. This cycle of boom and bust has happened again and again. The Roaring '20s ended in the Great Depression. The 1970s, massive inflation led to stagflation. The 2008 financial crisis, a housing bubble fueled by easy credit. And what did the government do in each case? They printed even more money to fix the problem they created in the first place. Inflation is like throwing a massive party on a credit card. At first, everyone's having a blast. The music is loud, the drinks are flowing, and people are spending like crazy. But then, the bill arrives. And suddenly, reality hits. The party's over, the house is trashed, and now you're stuck paying off a debt you can't afford. That's exactly what happens when governments print too much money. They borrow from the future to fund short-term prosperity. They pass the cost onto youth through higher prices and economic instability. They blame everyone else when things go wrong, except themselves. So, what can you do? Educate yourself? Inflation isn't just some mysterious force, it's a government policy. Invest wisely. Holding cash in savings means you're losing purchasing power. Question everything. When politicians promise free money, ask yourself, who's really paying for it? Because at the end of the day, nothing is ever free. Here's the deal: if you want to truly understand economics, you can't just focus on what's seen. You have to train yourself to think about what's unseen. The biggest mistake people make when thinking about the economy, they only look at immediate benefits, the short-term effects that are right in front of them. They see a new law, a government program, or a quick fix policy and think, wow, that's great. But what they don't see are the long-term consequences, the ripple effects that touch everyone, not just a select few. And that's where Henry Hazlitt's one lesson comes in. Every action has long-term consequences, and policies must be judged by their effect on all groups, not just a few. Imagine this. A politician proudly announces a new law that raises the minimum wage to $25 an hour. At first glance, it sounds amazing. Workers get paid more. People have more money to spend. The economy should boom, right? But here's what they don't tell you. What about the small businesses that can't afford to pay higher wages? A local coffee shop that used to hire 5 baristas can now only afford 3. 2 people lose their jobs. A family-owned bookstore shuts down completely because it can't keep up with labor costs. Large corporations replace workers with self-checkout kiosks and robots because machines don't need a paycheck. And suddenly, the very workers this law was supposed to help end up unemployed. This is what's unseen. On the surface, the law looked like a win for workers, but the unseen consequences hurt more people than they helped. The same goes for government job creation. Ever heard a politician say, the government needs to create more jobs? They say, we'll hire thousands of workers to build bridges and roads. We'll stimulate the economy by paying people to work. And at first, it sounds like a great idea. More jobs, right? But where does the money come from? The government doesn't create wealth, it takes it. Every job it funds comes from higher taxes on businesses and workers. That same money, if left in the hands of entrepreneurs and investors, could have created jobs in industries people actually want. The result? Jobs that would have existed naturally disappear. The government didn't create jobs, it just shifted them. Next time someone tells you, the government needs to create more jobs, we should raise wages by law. Inflation isn't a big deal. Stop, think, question. Ask yourself, what's the long-term effect? Who is paying for this? What opportunities are being lost? What are the unseen costs that no one is talking about? Henry Hazlitt's lesson isn't just about economics, it's about how to think critically. Because once you train yourself to see beyond the obvious, you'll start spotting economic myths everywhere. And once you see the truth, you'll never fall for these tricks again. Want to dive even deeper? If this video left you curious about how economics really works and how it affects your day-to-day life, then you absolutely need to grab a copy of Economics in One Lesson by Henry Hazlitt. It's a timeless classic, packed with real-world examples and insights that will challenge everything you thought you knew about the economy. This book will make you see the world in a whole new light. Don't just take my word for it. Start reading for yourself and uncover the hidden truths that mainstream economics doesn't want you to know. It's your turn. I want to hear from you. What's the biggest economic myth you used to believe? Maybe it's something you've heard your whole life, or maybe you've just realized it after watching this video. Either way, let's talk about it in the comments below. Was it that raising the minimum wage will always help workers? Or maybe you thought tariffs would protect jobs, but now you see the bigger picture. Maybe it was the idea that printing money is an easy fix for tough times. Let's share our thoughts and get the conversation started. Remember, no idea is too big or small to explore, because when we all understand how the economy really works, we're better equipped to make the choices that will actually improve our lives. Drop a comment below, but don't stop there. Sharing this video with your friends is one of the best ways to keep the conversation going. Trust me, your friends and family need to hear this. Because the sooner we all start questioning economic myths, the sooner we can make smarter decisions in our lives.